Hello everyone and welcome to this week's Top 5 Wednesday. The topic for this week is books that took you the longest to finish. Now, I didn't necessarily not enjoy these books, although one of them I know I didn't enjoy, but it just means that there were other things going on in my life at the time I was reading them. I am normally quite a fast reader, so I didn't have much of a choice for this week's Top 5 Wednesday topic, but it just means that there were other things going on in my life that for some reason meant that I couldn't actually read as much. So the first book that I'm going to talk about is A Feast for Crows by George R. Martin. This is the fourth book in the A Song of Ice and Fire series, and I actually had this with me while I was travelling through the southern US states earlier this year, and I didn't actually finish it in the whole 4.5 weeks I was away, which I felt really bad about, but obviously I was kind of enjoying myself and doing other things as well, so maybe that was one reason why I didn't get through it. It isn't actually one of my favourites in this series, but it is a kind of, obviously it's a book you have to read in order to be able to read A Dance with Dragons. So it was kind of a sort of filler book for me. It's not one of the longest. I think it's like 700 pages, which is still pretty long, obviously, for an average book. But I think the first two are longer than this. So yeah, it follows a different set of characters that I'm not as interested in as I am the other set of characters who unfortunately aren't in this book. But it's still a really good series, and obviously you have to read this in order to get to where we are up to with the books of this series at the moment. So yeah, as I said, it took me a long time to read when it probably shouldn't have done in normal circumstances. So yeah. The next one is a book that I didn't enjoy, and that is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I have this gorgeous Puffin in Bloom edition that I will always keep forever and ever, even though I really don't enjoy this story for some reason. I really want to like this classic, but I just can't get into it. Every time I try to read it, I just think I'm not into this and I put it down. But because I'll always have this edition, because it's gorgeous, I know I've shown it before on this channel, but I'm just showing you again. They do other classics in this edition as well, which I may look at getting maybe sort of as an early sort of birthday or Christmas present to myself or something like that. So yeah, I may give it another go in the future because I really want to like this classic. So yeah, we will see what happens, but it took me forever and ever to read. The first time I read it when I was much younger, and then I tried to read it again earlier this year and I had to DNF it. So yeah, I really want to like it though, so hopefully I will give it another go in the future. The next book was a book that I chose to read while I was at school, and that is Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. Now this is a huge book. I chose to read it for my French A-level coursework. I wrote an essay on it in French. I read it in English, but I wrote the essay on it in French. I'm a huge fan of the musical, big fan of the film version as well. It's one of my favourite musicals, definitely. And I read the book, and it's about 1,200 pages oddish. It's definitely the longest book that I've ever read, but it took me about 3 months to read. So yeah, I wrote my coursework on it obviously in a term, and it took me the whole term to read it. I was still reading it right just before I started the essay. So yeah, I remember I just turned 17 when I read this, and it became pretty much my life for 3 months, even though I had obviously other subjects going on as well. I remember dedicating a huge time to reading this book and writing my essay in French, which is obviously a different language for me. So yeah, that they were a tough 3 months, definitely, but it was worth it. So yeah, this took me a very long time to read, but obviously there is a very good reason for that. So yeah. The next book that took me a long time to read is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. This is the first Donna Tartt book I've read. I have read another one of hers called The Little Friend. This one is a pretty big book as well, but I don't know, I don't think I enjoyed it as much as I wanted to. It's about a group of college friends who basically descend into murder and violence and lots of debauchery and stuff like that. It's quite a sort of interesting read, I guess, but it's not really think what I wanted it to be, and it did take me quite a long time to read when I read it at some point early last year, I think, so about 18 months ago, nearly 2 years ago I read it. So yeah, it's okay, but I much prefer her other one that I've read called The Little Friend. I haven't read any of her others, so I haven't read The Goldfinch, which I know is a huge book as well, but I do have that on my Kindle, so maybe I will get to that maybe next year or something, we will see. But that's another huge book, so that would have to be like another sort of big project for me. I have to sort of get into the mindset for it, so yeah. And the last book that took me a long time to read may come as a surprise to a lot of you who watch my channel regularly, but it took me a very long time to read Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix the first time I read it, because this came out in 2003, and in 2003 I was 12 going on 13. I was 13 at the end of 2003, and I went through a phase of wanting to be cool, and I went through a phase of not really being that into reading and not really being into books. I was much more into TV and fashion and magazines and basically trying to be cool at that age. And although I was like obviously still into Harry Potter, like I still got this as soon as it came out, it took me ages and ages to read at that age. It is the longest Harry Potter book, but if I'd been as into reading as I was obviously when I read the first books, and as I was when I grew up a little bit and got back into books, then this probably wouldn't have taken me as long. And certainly when I've reread the series millions of times that I have, this hasn't taken me that long to read. So it is actually my least favourite in the series as well, actually, out of all of them, I think, probably. But yeah, it took me, I think it probably took me like 2 or 3 months to read it when it first came out, which is insane, I know, but you know, kids are like at that age. Your interest kind of diverts to other things, and yeah, but I'm really happy that I finished it and that I got back into the series. Certainly by the time Deathly Hallows was out, I was very much back into Harry Potter mode, but I did go through a phase where I was more interested in other things, and it pains me to say it now, but yeah, teenage regrets. I think everybody has them, but that is definitely one of mine. And that is it for this week's Top 5 Wednesday. What books took you the longest to read and why? I'd love to know. Let me know. I will leave all my social media down below as normal. I hope you're having an awesome day, and I will see you very soon for another video. Bye bye.